sometimes, but also really good.
Oh, snap.
Side air.
He
Puts
doesn't have
Java.
jump.
Oh
He doesn't have jump.
my gosh!
Sandstorm's out.
That pick.
Sandstorm's out. Jump.
From here on out, things were about to change, with a losing tournament history against probably his scariest bracket Kryptonite, having lost on the winner's side to one of NA's favorite Big Bite man, and on the verge of losing his PCX streak. This was one hell of a tournament for not only Sandstorm, but Brawlhalla as a whole. The last tournament of the year, and of course the most important, was everything these players were dreaming about. For once, you have someone who was set on defending his title as a former champion, and on the other side, you have someone who was dead set on taking the king down. Both of those stories, are equally interesting and exciting, but we gotta lean on the one that, shocked everyone the most. Right then everybody, my name is Back, and we are back with the third episode of Pro Player Analysis. This time, as a result of a Twitter poll, we're gonna be looking to one of NA's current sensations, Java, who, back in 2021, was mentioned by virtually everyone in the Brawlhalla scene. But let's tone it down and see why. November 2021 had a lot of surprises, but also a lot of uprising tendencies, from a vast using of weapon throws by the top players, to the common meta shifting from said players, to virtually the same 2 or 3 maps being played over and over again. Balance and gameplay wise, we have to wait for the next tournaments with the current patch as of now, but I'm willing to bet that it's like day and night compared to 2021, and here's why. Wall slip. We have the old wall slip mechanics that consisted of 15 max air actions that would decrease periodically after the first exclamation points. You are able to reset the air action counter by getting hit or hitting an opponent, or by touching the ground or a platform. Tournament map pool. The tournament pool was recently changed to merge 1v1 and 2v2 together, whereas 2021's map pool had its own set of maps that used to benefit the match as a game mode. Weapon throws. Old weapon throws had the insane ability to scale their damage based on charge time, time on air, and velocity. They also were an insane tool to get back on stage, whether you are on the edge or trying to land, and they were also an insane tool to control the flow of the game by either weapon starving, weapon priming, and even edge guarding. Some of these features are still doable and of course reliable at a top level, but just toned down a bit by the recent patch. Balance. Comparing this current patch to 2021's patch, we have stuff regarding Hammer's knockout moves being toned down, with D-Light and Zero being changed to having more end lag and less force, plus a different direction to where the move sends, respectively. Sword has more end lag on some of its aerials, Scythe recovery and ground pound being less faster on input, and Mordek's deadly ending on Scythe being toned down just a tiny bit as of today. We can agree that 2021 was much better for either Java or Sandstorm, but according to one of them, it doesn't change that much. Having the more technical stuff out of the way, what about the players? On one side, you have a Sandstorm who pretty much everyone believed it was going to be the next PCX champ, after losing to Cody in Winners, and losing to Java who looked dominant back then in Winters from the same year. Maybe the odds were not completely in his favor. On the other side, Java was on everyone's mouth, just like Stingray on years prior. He won the heart of the audience by taking out big names like Sandstorm and Cody Travis. People were excited to see what this man was capable of, especially since after his amazing run back in Winters, since it opened up a door for everyone to see who exactly was Java. Now going actually onto the match, let's play in the customary order. We're going to be looking at the entire set this time. That means 2 wins and 2 losses from both players, and then we'll ultimately get to the last game, which will decide the winners between these two. Player, Java. Region, North America. Tournament set, BCX 2021 NA Edition. At first glance, we're greeted by Mammoth Fortress, which will be the home of our 5 games today. Couple seconds into the match, Java goes high to secure the first weapon, which will reward him with the first interaction to his favor, a couple seconds after. Sandstorm manages to snatch out his first weapon, but not without getting hit by Java. After that, the footsies begin. These two players, once they get a hold of a weapon, start feeling each other by dash jumping and doing tomahawks right in front of the other. This can be seen as two different ways to approach the first stock. On Sandstorm's side, he's looking for an opener since he has the matchup advantage against Hammer, and on Java's side, he's looking to find a way to go around Sandstorm's Gauntlet's approaches. As a result, we see both players go about 10 seconds on what it looked to be like a mirror pattern regarding the movements, which can be set into short dash jumps, jump baits after set dash jumps, and dodge movement to completely cut out movement momentum. Seconds after this interaction, Sandstorm gets a couple hits with gauntlets, but the story ends there, since he gets hit by a hammer sidelight that will lead onto one of Java's comfort zones, the off stage. There leads into a weapon throw pickup ground pound that will force Sandstorm to go low. He quickly tries to touch the wall, but Java pulls him down with hammer recovery. On the perfect spot, time his ground pound right as Sandstorm touches the wall with his last option available. Right on stage, Java takes no time in picking up a weapon and starting the weapon start game. Luckily for Sandstorm, Java decides to get ahead of himself and throw out a couple stomps, expecting Sandstorm to get out of invincibility frames earlier than expected. As a result, he gets a couple hits with unarmed, followed by a 2-piece with scythe. A couple whiffs later, Java finds himself 2 hammer hits that will put Sandstorm further back onto the match. Java goes around the stage trying to find a way to land more chip damage, and he manages to find 2 hammer shares that will put Sandstorm on deep orange. A similar scenario occurs afterwards. After Sandstorm goes a little bit too greedy, throws out 2 scythe d6 that hit no one, and Java took advantage of those, getting 2 more hammer sidelights followed by a hard read Ensig that Sandstorm punished with a hard sidelight on scythe. Said sidelight puts Java onto the off stage, but he finds his way onto the stage with a dodge to the ground, followed by a hammer Ensig that catches Sandstorm off guard, sealing his second stock. Same as the first stock, Java continues to surely weapon starve Sandstorm, yet again priming Hammer as his main weapon. Seconds after, Sandstorm tries to get Java's first stock, but only getting a couple hits here and there, that basically had no force whatsoever. This repeats for an extended period of time, before Sandstorm finally catches one of Java's landings without a dodge, getting his first stock off the game. Sandstorm, after getting that stock, throws his weapon away but does not choose to weapon start Java for longer, sticking with the scythe and even giving Java some respect after he respawns, allowing Java to get a weapon fully untouched with his iframes. A couple footsies later, both players start throwing out moves. Java gets a sidelight into an air read, but he misses the platform on his landing, getting him onto the off-stage game, just for Sandstorm to rack up damage. Java tries to get back on stage, but Sandstorm throws him back with a 2-piece on scythe. Luckily, Java dodges through a possible third hit from that interaction, and now Sandstorm is off stage and Java has the stage control. Wisely, Java decides to wander around the edge, not really forcing himself down, since Sandstorm has a hold of scythe that can potentially turn around the game in a matter of seconds. Sandstorm gets back on stage, and even after getting hit once by Java, he manages to get out of trouble. Through all of his second stock, Java has been going through a lot of cheap damage dealt by Sandstorm's scythe. We saw said damage on the offstage interaction, and more followed after Sandstorm got back on stage. Sandstorm throws his weapon away in order to weapon starve Java mid-stock, but he fails and he gets put on the offstage game. That will not lead into anything other than a missed opportunity and a single neutralize from Hammer. Sandstorm now successfully weapon starves Java and gets even more ship damage. Java is now on kill range. Java fakes out going for a weapon, and as a result, Sandstorm gets hit not only by a kick to the face, but also a strong haymaker that'll put him into the kill range. A couple exchanges later, Sandstorm manages to find a KO with a scythe there. Now the game is even on stocks. Now on the back end of the game, Sandstorm finally decides to weapon starve Java for a little bit longer than last time. On their Hammer Scythe matchup, Scythe has the upper hand in speed and range, allowing Scythe to get more hits before Hammer even does anything. As a result, Java throws his hammer away after getting hit and put into the yellow range. Now Java, on a faster weapon, forces the match to go back onto raw footsies. Seconds later, followed by a hard GC read that will only get him onto clear orange health, slowly losing the grasp of the match. We're starting to see the nerfs on both players, more so on Java than Sandstorm, since he's getting hit after hit and even throws out another GC that'll only make his situation worse. Now the game is fully even in damage and stocks. Sandstorm prematurely throws out a ground pound that'll allow Java to get back on stage and even take out the game after catching Sandstorm's landing. Game 2 starts with a Sandstorm who now knows Java's way to start the game. So Sandstorm goes high and quickly hits Java in order to obstruct his gameplay. This rewards Sandstorm with the first weapon spawn and a couple hits on Scythe. Now on light yellow, Java finally manages to touch the ground and quickly dashes away of Sandstorm, picks up his first weapon and immediately evens out the damage. Running across the stage, he finds a Zerg that will eventually lead into a delay Zerg, putting Sandstorm into deep orange. He goes for a possible edge guard with a weapon throw, but misses since Sandstorm stays close to the wall. As a result, now Sandstorm has the opportunity to go back on stage and regain stage control. Java finds another weapon spawn and after a couple footsies, he throws Sandstorm off stage with a neutral light. Fakes out a neutral reset and immediately throws a side stick that connects on a Sandstorm who believed he was safe to get back on stage. Java loses no time and goes for a weapon start, priming yet again Hammer to deal with Sandstorm fresh without a weapon. A couple footsies later, Sandstorm chases Java and as a result, Java finds a 3-piece on Hammer, putting Sandstorm onto deep yellow, followed by a quick wake up on Sandstorm's side who throws Java off stage, but hesitates too much on his next move, and as a result, Java uses a weapon throw to obstruct any move from Sandstorm, follows it up with an unarmed dare, tomahawk jumps and fast fall while grabbing the weapon and recovers Sandstorm, forcing him to go around Mammoth Fortress, but Java with a quick interaction manages to go around it first, and throws out a premature ground pound that forces Sandstorm yet again to do something in response, dodging into the lower part of the stage. But by the time Sandstorm even tries to reversal to make the situation better, Java had already piled up a hammer recovery and gets back on stage. That entire interaction lasted for just 7 seconds. Back on stage, Java goes for a weapon start, and once Sandstorm is out of iframes, he chases him in order to get chip damage, finding a drop combo followed by a delayed sidelight that will also lead into a delayed Zerg a couple seconds after. Java, full of himself, goes for more risky stuff like that slide desync, and Sandstorm, not knowing what to do, manages to hit a Zerg, followed by more drop chances on trying to get a kill on Java. Seconds after, Sandstorm hits a neutral light and basically seals Java's first stock. Sandstorm goes for a short weapon starve and primes Scythe for the next weapon. Java finds a spawn of his own and gets only one there before getting read by Sandstorm, getting a 3-piece on Scythe. Let's remember that for every easy hit on Scythe that Sandstorm gets, if Java finds just one D-Light, he basically puts Sandstorm on a worse situation. A couple interactions later, both players find chip damage into each other, eventually leading on to Sandstorm playing the footsies game and finding a sneaky landing D-Sec that catches Java off guard and throws him off stage. Seconds later, Sandstorm easily confirms the kill with a weapon toss. As a result of having no weapons on screen, Sandstorm grabs a weapon spawn, and once Java barely gets on stage, Sandstorm had already thrown out said weapon and swapped it for a fresh one, delaying the time on which another weapon spawns. Now tied on stocks, both players find a couple of hits into each other, Sandstorm taking advantage on Java, who's the one that's going in for approaches mainly, as a result of him wanting to end the game quickly. Hit after hit, Sandstorm gets Java on the orange range. Java responds with a Zerg that sadly bounces off the stage and loses 20% of its original force. Sandstorm gets around Java's edgeguard attempt, and now the thing gets spicier. The game slowly gets fully even out and both players start to ramp out their panic options, commonly throwing out their weapon in order to get a lucky hit that'll send the other player off stage. Seconds later, Java finds a random weapon spawn mid-air and throws Sandstorm off stage. He pressures him with sword and even finds a D-Light that sadly picked up a little too low, making Java miss out on his killing blow. Luckily for him, Sandstorm tries to take advantage of that, throwing out a move of his own, just for Java to expect it with a GC delay recovery that seals the second game. Going on to game 3, Sandstorm tries a different strat on the first few seconds, going low expecting Java to change his weapon pick strat. Java, as the previous games, goes high and gets the first weapon but immediately throws it away, trying to start Sandstorm. This fails however as Sandstorm grabs a hold of Gauntlets and gets a huge dodge read after a neutral light that will lead onto an offstage situation for Java, followed by a swipe with Scythe against Java's unarmed. Back on stage, Sandstorm yet again decides to let Java take out the weapon spawn right after he lands. This allows Java and Sandstorm to trade out a couple hits before Java starts evening up the game, with some max range Sairs. Goes for a cheeky ground pound that Sandstorm dodges but isn't able to punish due to his position, and Java tries to recover Sandstorm, but after that Sandstorm quickly goes around the stage. This time Java tries to be even faster than last time by throwing his weapon, but it barely misses Sandstorm who's stuck to the left wall. The next few seconds showcase the amount of pressure a player feels once the game slips through their hands, as Java quickly tries to go for stuff like easy weapon throws and reversal GCD lights to try and catch Sandstorm off guard, who avoids said options and gets chip damage every now and then. And after a couple neutral resets and a true combo for Sandstorm, they both get onto the offstage play and Java takes advantage of Sandstorm going a little overboard with his follow-ups, evening up the stock count. Back on stage, Java goes for his characteristic weapon starve, but only finds 2 hits on sword before dying to Sandstorm's Scythe Ensig that just catch Java's landing on the platform. Sandstorm yet again decides to not weapon start Java, leaving him a free hammer pickup, followed by an unorthodox ground pound from him. Seconds after, Java combines dash jumping and fast falling with some of hammer aerials to cover big amounts of stage on which Sandstorm likes to wander on, putting him on orange. But while doing so, he's also taking 2-piece after 2-piece from Sandstorm's Scythe. After a side left from Java, they both get off stage. Java quickly throws Sandstorm away with a hammer nair and tries to catch his landing with Bodvar's hammer Ensig, which sadly was facing the wrong way and he gets punished by a smart yet lucky unarmed D-Light weapon pickup Ensig from Sandstorm. Java quickly lands after said interaction and throws Sandstorm off stage with hammer Sair, and quickly chases him, sealing his second stock with a GC unarmed sidelight. Back on stage, Java successfully weapon stars Sandstorm, dash on fast fall nairs with hammer, and Haro reads a Sandstorm land with a hammer Ensig. Without losing the pace, goes for a hammer nair and pressures Sandstorm onto landing quickly, and Sandstorm eats yet another Ensig to the face, evening up the damage. Java's quick dash jumps combined with dodges to the ground allow him to find even more damage before going for another hammer Ensig that goes unpunished. Both players find chip damage basically trading hit after hit, but sadly once Java saw Sandstorm off stage picking up a little bit on the edge, he goes for the by now, boomy classic. A weird sword side stick that hits no one since Sandstorm was already on his fast fall animation, leaving him on the perfect position to land a side recovery that seals the third game. Game 4 starts with Sandstorm focused on his previous strat, goes immediately for a hit on Java that allows him to start the game with the smallest shade of yellow plus the first weapon spawn. Seconds after both players trade hit after hit, Java equalizing the damage before grabbing his first weapon, and Sandstorm after Java grabs his weapon, trying to push up a lead, we see Java trying to go for more plays like in game 1, throwing Sandstorm off stage and immediately going for a hard follow-up. But once he sees Sandstorm easily get out of the situation, decides to force out a stalling scenario that will give him a break to think about what's next. On stage, Java goes for options like weapon throws to push back Sandstorm, and a really high recovery followed by what it looked to be a misinput with hammer ground pound. This only looks like a misinput with no major foreshadow, since after getting punished by Sandstorm, he throws him off stage and seals the first stock with a hammer Sair first into the wall. Back on stage, Java weapon starves Sandstorm, but he gets a hold of a weapon spawn while also evening up the damage. On some scenarios, even forcing Java to stay off stage by pure pressure. Sandstorm sees Java go high and doesn't go for an immediate response, just slowly chases Java on the ground by moving where he's gonna land, allowing him to get a GC delay recovery that seals Java's first stock without any major lead. Sandstorm decides to get a fresh scythe after a weapon spawn, while yet again leaving Java free to get a weapon of his own. Both players trade blow for blow, followed by footsies around each other. Java prefers to throw his sword away and stay floaty in order to snatch a lucky weapon spawn. They continue with the damage trade, and seconds later, Sandstorm starts running away with a tiny lead, getting Java without a weapon while dealing 2-piece after 2-piece on Scythe. Java tries to get back on stage, but gets tossed around and even weapon storm mid-interaction. Sandstorm decides to disengage and goes for a weapon spawn to storm Java. Java thinks Sandstorm is gonna back on his decisions and tries to go high in order to hit Sandstorm, but gets hit by a Scythe Insect that seals his second stock. Sandstorm, on a big lead, decides that it's now time to pressure Java by weapon starving him for longer than he usually does. Though, this does not matter as Java stays floaty again and snatches yet another high weapon spawn. With a couple shape hits, Java gets Sandstorm on deep orange, but bets it all on a weird sword ground pound that leaves him on the back end of the interaction, with no options but a dodge and a jump and a Sandstorm who's ready for anything on side. As a result, Java has no options after being tossed around by Sandstorm and loses his last stock basically on light yellow. After a breather from both players, we start game 5 with a quick interaction in favor of Sandstorm. Once again, he reads Java going high and hits him with a recovery and picks up the weapon spawn mid-air, allowing him to immediately get a 3-piece, basically making Java start the tiebreaker on deep yellow. Back on the ground, goes for a sword sidelight that gets him punished after a dead read by Sandstorm, getting Java on deep orange. Java tries to get chip damage and even chooses to swap weapons, but still isn't enough, as Sandstorm catches a reversal delay from Java, putting him on kill range. A couple interactions later, the game goes for longer than expected since Java decides to take his time in every situation he gets a hold of, whether it's off stage or even hitting Sandstorm once every now and then. Seconds later, on a weird interaction, Java loses his stock after going off stage against Sandstorm without a weapon and dies to a GC neutral line. Sandstorm does not hesitate to weapon start Java on their last game. Still, he gets a hold of a weapon spawn and puts Sandstorm onto light red. Java still decides to pressure Sandstorm by hitting a 3-piece on sword and immediately going for a thread off the edge. Sadly catches Sandstorm with a sword recovery, but this one, as it's customary, drops on him, leading on Java getting hit twice by Sandstorm and also being forced to go around the stage. Java decides to play the patient games to potentially avoid choking the game with reckless decisions, even going as far as pushing his air action warnings. Once the time is up, he sees an opportunity and lands on stage while also taking Sandstorm's first stock. Java weapon starts Sandstorm and goes for his trusty hammer. He gets hit twice, but manages to find a 3-piece that builds up a little bit of momentum. Seconds after, Sandstorm manages to find another 2-piece that sends Java off stage, followed by an unarmed GC sidelight that seals Java's second stock. Now we're in the final stretch. Sandstorm on yellow, Java on his last stock, and we start off this final interaction with Java taking his time and letting Sandstorm do the approaches, puts Sandstorm onto light orange and even reads him with a reversal GC light that puts Sandstorm onto a juggle situation. Sandstorm manages to land, but continues to get hit by Java's chip damage and slow movement. Manages to find a 2-piece on Java, but Java immediately disengages and goes for an easy recovery back to stage. On stage, Java goes for safe moves like max range there and normal jumps there, to try and catch Sandstorm off guard while also not putting him on a bad spot. This rewards him with a movement mix-up by Java, who goes grounded and finds a D-Light Serve followed by a weapon toss that completely evens up the game. Last stock situation, Java continues to throw out safe moves in order to even up the small lead Sandstorm has, approaching slowly, tomahawk jumping and backing up, making sure he doesn't let Sandstorm know he's going for a full commitment. Seconds later, Java throws his sword away and finds a couple unarmed hits on Sandstorm, pushing him back and letting Java get on his conforged weapon, the hammer. Both players trade hit after hit, while also giving each other a lot of respect when it comes to stage control. Java finds 2 hammer dares that put Sandstorm on a scary juggle situation. Sandstorm lands, and Java goes for a hard read with hammer insect. After getting punished, he recovers high and goes for a ground pound that yet again fails on him, surprising Sandstorm. Sandstorm bets it all on a high recovery read from Java, but he misses Java, who was already touching the ground after mixing up his recovery by going low. He immediately recognizes the few options Sandstorm has after he spent his recovery and a panic dodge. Sandstorm gets hit by a hammer stare, and that seals the final set. PR11, Java takes out the multi-champion Sandstorm in Losers Finals. Though at the start of the set it looked like a strong victory for Java, it shows that no matter the situation, there's always room for error. A little overconfidence can lead into what it looked to be a 3-stock or a clean 2-stock to a down-to-the-wire last stock red game. Though giving a lot of respect to your opponent means that they can start to pile up momentum quickly, to the point where it's almost impossible to stop. Both players had this in mind over the course of the set, thus giving us an amazing performance that went to Game 5. However, the one player who stood up on top was Java, due to having Sandstorm movement downloaded down to the wire, slowly adapting on his weapons towards matchups, and at the verge of throwing the set, not losing his cool and waiting for the right moment to act out. That concludes the third episode of Pro Player Analysis. I tried to switch up the format by adding more depth in match rather than after the match. Well, we'll see how that goes. Thanks a lot to Java for letting me use one of his tournament sets, and also replying to my questions that are, scattered around the video. Any feedback, comment, or even sharing it with someone else helps a lot in these kind of videos. If you have a pro player in mind that you'll want to see in another episode, or you have any complaints about the format of said episodes, let me know in the comments. And as always, thank you for watching.